Hello, good afternoon, good day, etc., everybody. In my head, like whenever I start these streams, I imagine like when I start, I'm gonna be like, "Yay! Hi, everybody!" All super excited, and then I start it, and I'm just kind of like, "Hello." So welcome to everybody who is watching live. Hello to everybody watching the recording. Hello, everybody. It has been an incredibly busy 2 weeks. Apparently, something happened in the sky, I think. I don't know. It was cloudy in Louisiana. So, who knows what happened. I just got back from a conference where I should say DevNexus, which is an awesome conference. I've been going for years. But the best thing about DevNexus this year is that I saw not one, not two, but three very dear, very old friends of mine. And it was like the first time in like over a decade that we were able to be in the same room together. So that was great. And I got to speak on Alpine JS, one of my favorite web frameworks out there, and see some interesting sessions as well. I will say again, DevNexus and Connect Tech, they're both run by the same group, both in Atlanta. They've been around for years and years and years. Always a well run conference, always a good conference in terms of content, a very diverse audience, which is good, and just all around a great thing to attend. Also, in the last 2 weeks, I got older. I had a birthday. I did the same day of the eclipse, actually, which I thought was great planning on my part, if I must say so. Um, I turned a year older. Physically, I feel like about 90 or so. But maturity wise, I'm staying right at nice and 12. So I'm doing very well there. So I realized last week I didn't give away a prize from Algolia. Algolia, who sponsors me giving away prizes and has a great search service API. I recommend it. It's on my blog if you want to see it in action, etc. So for today, I'm going to ask a question. So, like I said, I feel like I'm 90. I'm as mature as a 12-year-old. If you know my real name, sorry, my real age, and your name is not Todd Sharp, Brian Rinaldi, Scott Strohs, because they already know my age. If you guess how old I turned, then you will be the winner of the fabulous prize from Algolia. So I will let y'all comment and really, really. I mean, Scott could be 68, but no, not me. No, not me. By the way, if you guess a real young age, I may give you the prize anyway. Jason, Jason, another old friend I have not seen in a very long time. Hope you're doing all right, buddy. Let's see if someone's going to guess. Tw- no, no, you do not win. Period. All right, let's see. I know I got some regulars here who are not my close dear friends. I see Ariane. I see who did I see? Bob Monsieur. Y'all need to guess at my age. Come on, don't be embarrassed. Oh, Mark, 43. You are my new favorite person. That's younger than my wife, actually. But no, not 43. Let's see who's going to get it. I will say again, over 43. So that limits you to a range of like, 44 to 100. Pretty good range there for you to be able to win. Again, a fabulous prize. Mark is, I think, the only one brave so far. Not 47. Keep on going up. Oh, 54. No, you automatically lose now. Sorry, you can never win again. Go lower than 54. So over 47, less than 54. You have a pretty good range there, which you could safely guess. Dave, 50. Really, really close. Go a little higher. Todd, yeah, normally I tell people like immediately. I don't wait. All right, you have a range of 3, so someone is gonna win pretty darn soon, I assume. Let's see, come on. You can't defend me. Not too much anyway. You only have 3 guesses left, 3 numbers left, so somebody has to get it. Think Da okay, yeah, you know what? Dave, you're the closest. I'm 51, so I'm calling you the winner. Close enough. Dave, reach out to me after this. You can email me at my email address. I like this. Yeah. Yes, I'm moving on. I'm sorry. Dave, I just put my email address in the comments. Just send me an email after. I will connect you with Algolia and they will send you the keys to your brand new car. All right. So let's get into what I want to show. And give me a moment here to move my camera over there and get my stuff set up here and blah, blah, blah. And this is the look I want. All right. So, as a reminder, I say this every week. Any of the code that I write will be checked into my GitHub repository at github.com, cf.master code BR. Now, normally the code I'm writing right now will not be up there until like, you know, 5 or 10 minutes after we talk. But if you want to, or if you're watching the recording, if you want to see what we played with, then this is where you will have it. And what I want to talk about today, just switch back to my comments. All right. What I want to talk today about is progressive web apps. So this is something that I feel like was a really, really big deal 4 or 5 years ago, and like everybody was talking about it. And I used to give presentations about it. In fact, I went and looked at my presentation archive, and I think my last time may have been 2017, which is forever ago. Pretty sure I've given it since then, but it's something that I don't hear people talking a lot about. The only exception to that being is Apple recently was kind of hinting that they were going to kneecap progressive web apps and web apps, just the web in general, based on what's happening in Europe. And luckily, they retreated from that position, thankfully. But I don't necessarily hear people talking about it a lot in the web sphere. So to speak. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think a lot of what we used to associate with, what makes a progressive web app has just become like a normal part of how we build websites. Or if not a part of every single website, it's just one more tool we have in our stack of, ways to build web apps. Um, if you go to the Wikipedia page that talks about progressive web apps, you can look at this and you can kind of read about the history and see, kind of who initially coined the term, and what kind of makes up a PWA. One of the important things to kind of keep in mind is that essentially uh, this term was just created, and initially people said, hey, it means A, B, and C. And that kind of stuck as the definition for what PWAs are. But it is essentially, a community agreement kind of, that if we're building a PWA, it means so many things. I know when I would give presentations on PWAs, I tended to de-emphasize the whole app aspect. This is something that I've probably have ranted about on this particular stream. If not, I know I've talked about it recently. But there's a lot that you could build on the web platform that is not an application, and there's also not a super firm outline of this is an app and this is just a traditional web page. Typically, if you're viewing a website that is a single page and JavaScript is used to load things. That's typically called an app shell, where that first request to the homepage loads a shell essentially of HTML, and then JavaScript is used to load everything in. That typically almost always is considered an application. But I've also built without JavaScript, like admin dashboards for websites before using backend technology like Cool Fusion, where I would consider that to be an application, but it's multiple pages and not using JavaScript at all. So I did not like emphasizing the app part because I felt like the things we were talking about, the improvements, etc., uh, would apply to every single website that you build out there. That being said, I think probably the thing that people associate with a PWA is installation criteria. So if you have gone to a website and, after the cookie consent screen, after the can we send you notification screen, all that BS, um, if the browser itself says, "Hey, you know what? I can install this on your desktop." And typically, this is in the mobile space, but even on a desktop browser, you can get the same thing. If you get that prompt, that's kind of considered what a PWA will give you. And that's kind of what I want to focus on today. Let me make this a little bigger. So, when talking about like installation criteria, and these are pretty much the same things that I would like show on stage when I was talking about PWAs a couple of years ago. The things that were required were a secure server, which again, like I said earlier about some of these things coming becoming default, that really is the default. Like I know I recently hit a non HTTPS site like a week or so ago, and I was like shocked, like, no, they still exist. But in general, like everyone is deploying to a secure server, so it's not really an issue. Second aspect that's required is a service worker. And that's the hard part. Service worker is a pretty low level feature of the web platform. I am going to be building one either today or in the next session. But when people talk about offline support, normally that's what they mean because service workers can do things like cache HTML, cache images, and respond when you're offline. Not even just offline, they can even respond when you're online and just do things quicker, right? So if there is certain graphics on your site that have not changed, you can use a service worker to cache that information on the user's device. And even if they're online, just give them those cached images and allow for greater performance, a much quicker return of data. Third aspect, and this is like actually the easiest one typically, is what's called the web app manifest. And this is a JSON file that essentially says, hey, when you do install me, when you do save the desktop or whatever, here are the properties for this website. And this is where you get things like the icons, for example. This is where you get things like the icon name on your mobile screen. Um, what would be the name on your desktop, for example, of the application. It also has a few more things you could tweak as well, but typically those three things. And then the nice thing again is that the first one you already have, like you have HTTPS. By the way, I will point out that there are multiple web features that require HTTPS. Geolocation is one of them. All browsers, I say all browsers, I don't use Safari a lot, but I'm pretty sure it follows this rule. But all browsers typically ignore localhost. So if you ever see something like geolocation and see that it requires HTTPS, know that you can test on your own machine, as long as you're running a web server, not using a file open. You can test that just fine. And when you go live to production in HTTPS, it will continue to work. So that was most of PWA. Typically would spend an hour gone. I'll say, like, if you go into this Wikipedia page, it lists a whole set of things that you can absolutely use without even thinking about PWA at all. Web storage and IndexedDB. I've been talking about them for maybe 10 years or so. In fact, I even wrote a book on storage. Those are both APIs that essentially allow you to just take data and just store it locally. And they're both pretty powerful. Web storage being pretty easy, and NextDB being pretty not easy. That'd be actually a great thing for us to look at a later session. But these are things that you can use without, again, having an application, without thinking about a service worker or manifests or any of that. Um, so yes, things to think about. All right. So what I am thinking, what my like plan is I want to begin by building a very, very, very simple web page or a simple application even. And then what I want to look at is, what do I need to do to get it to a point where my browser starts prompting me to install it on my, in this case, my desktop, but also on a mobile browser as well. So my thinking was I was going to use the wonderful Dad Joke API. You can see it on screen here. It is fairly simple. You hit the URL and you make sure you pass a proper accept header, and then you will get a joke back. So what I was thinking is start with that. Just make sure I have a basic web app that does that, that works correctly, and then we'll start looking at, okay, maybe we can add the manifest file. Maybe we can add the service worker, depending on how much time we have. What can I do to make it a bit more mobile friendly? And I will show you how I test that on my desktop. So I am in a brand new folder here. I'm going to make an index.html file, and we'll add my little snippet here. And we're going to call this the Dad Joke app. Very exciting. So I'm going to drop in a link rel equals style sheet and href equals app.css. We'll define that in a minute. I'm going to add a place for my joke. I'll just call it a div, and we'll add a button to load a joke. And we'll say load joke. And then finally, I am going to script source app.js, if I could spell correctly. Do a live coding stream, he said. Type live, it'll go perfectly. Cool. So we have this, and let's go ahead and open up a little terminal here and fire up a local web server. By the way, I am using a command line tool called http-server. I have Todd Sharp to thank for showing me that. I made an alias for the command line of dub, so it's easier to remember. But all I did is, in this folder, I fired up a local web server, and you can see it's running on 8080. And before I do anything here, let us add my style sheet, which for now will be blank. And let's add app.js. Oops, nope. Let's actually call it app.js. Thank you. And make that blank. All right, so that should be it. Now, I feel pretty confident this is going to work, so I'm not going to test quickly. Live server. It's better reloads automatically. Yeah, Todd, I've been thinking about adding browser sync. I've been thinking about adding browser sync to my library of tools as well. That's what 11D uses, which is how I generate my website. It's been on my list to play with at some point. Just haven't gotten around to it yet. But not going to run this right now because I know it's not broken yet. I'm sure I'll break it. But I will kind of do when I'm not doing Alpine. I typically write this exact same code every single time. And let me write it and then I'll explain it. So document add event listener DOM content loaded. This is the same as jQuery ready, basically, from the old days. The document is ready to do stuff. I'm telling it to run init. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing asynchronous stuff, but I will just type the async keyword anyway. And finally, console.log, hello world, etc. Very simple, very basic. At this point, I want to make sure it's actually running. So we will go open a new tab, localhost 8080, open up my console, hello world. And yeah, that error I could ignore. By the way, Edge is doing this kind of new thing where you could click to get an explanation of errors, which I think is kind of cool. Like, we'll actually try this, see what it does. Sure, you can access that. And are you actually going to show me anything? Let me try that again. I gave you permission. Do what you want. Oh, that was an epic failure, Edge. Let's close that. Let's try it again. Yeah, it did absolutely nothing. That's lovely. And actually, I've used the Windows Copilot integration before, and it works okay, but maybe it'll work in the future. So let's go back to our code. My application will, when the page loads, I want to immediately get a joke. I want the button to allow you to get a joke as well. So I'm going to make a new function called get joke and not forget the function keyword. And all we're going to do is let resp equals await fetch. And let's go back to that URL. Where was it? All API endpoints right there. I copy that endpoint, and it is important that you set the accept headers. So I'm going to go in here. I know at least I have one person in here who did not know about fetch. So I will remind you that fetch is essentially making a network request. It was $.ajax in jQuery. It used to be XML HTTP requests. That was like the web standard. Fetch is the much cleaner and simpler to use version of that. And this await fetch basically means I am making a network request to icanhasthatjoke.com, and I'm going to pass a custom header, accepts application.json, and that should do it. And I actually like to call this request and let result equals await rec.json. So before I do anything else, let me make sure I actually did this correctly. And we will call get joke in our init. Now, in theory, go back here, reload, and we should see a network call from Blocked by Cores. No. They allow that. I've used this before. Oh, you know what? Accept, not accepts. That's totally going to fix it. If not, we're switching to a whole other. There we go. All right. So let me make that a little bigger for y'all on the screen. We get an ID back. We get a joke. I don't really care about the ID. I do care about the joke. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write code to essentially write back into the DOM that joke value. So I'm going to make a variable for my div. I like using, nope, not const, I like using $ variable name for variables that represent DOM elements. This is based on my jQuery history. And like visually, I just like knowing, oh, that variable, that's a pointer to something in the DOM. So in our init, we will say div equals document.query selector. And by the way, div is a horribly vague name, but that's all right. We'll point to our joke div, saw like that. All right, so now that we have that, we can actually go in here and say div enter HTML equals result.joke. And really, it was just plain text, so that should be okay. But save it, reload, and now the joke should render. There you go. Did you hear the one about the giant pickle? He was kind of a big dill. This is my level of code. Yep. So I just saw that, Brian. Let me know if that's not big enough. I did make it bigger before I started, I swear. All right, so at this point, don't need the console.log. I'm pretty sure this is running correctly. The page loads, we call get joke. Get joke handles the dad joke API, gets response, writes it to HTML. The only other thing we need to do now is to wire up that button to call the same function. And I'm going to do that here. And because I know I don't need the button again, I'm going to run this one time. I don't believe I gave the button an ID. I'll call it joke button or joke BTN. We will select that joke BTN dot add event listener, click get joke, and don't bubble up. And in theory, that's it. Let's reload. And we have no styling or whatever. How much does a hipster weigh? An Instagram. Oh, I feel like people used to make fun of hipsters quite a lot the last couple of years. And every time I would look at those jokes, I would say, wow, that looks just like me. That's scary. All right, so let's click the button. And it works. All right, cool. Now, one more thing I want to add, just to make this a bit more friendly. Even though the API is really, really quick, sometimes it may not be. And you know what? Let's show that in action. Actually, let me get rid of the overview. So I am in the network control panel, and one of the features you can have is throttling. So I'm going to make this be slow 3G. And now if we reload, we should see, let me clear this out. Should see that joke load a little bit quicker, or slower, I should say. All right, see it's totally blank, and there the joke loads. So it would be kind of trivial to at least render something while it's working. So what I'm going to do is in that div, I'm going to say enter HTML equals loading awesomeness, because jokes are awesome, especially dad jokes. So now, as soon as it begins that never request, the user sees something, they know something that's going on, and then the joke renders. And if they hit that button again, then it should show again. So let's reload this. And we're still seeing the old comment. There we go, loading awesomeness. And there it is. And if we click it again, we should see, there we go. All right, so I know that works. So we'll just turn off throttling for now. Let's actually go ahead though and start doing a little bit of CSS. I will warn you, I am very, very bad at CSS, but let's have some fun with this. All right. So first off, this is a joke site. So why not set the font family to Comic Sans? I think it has to be in quotes. I think Comic Sans is appropriate for a joke site. I did it wrong, so let's font family Comic Sans MS. Okay, yep. You know what? I like this example. I like cursive as a backup. So we'll go in there, boom saw like that. Save it and be prepared to look at the awesomeness. There we go. Nice and big. Let's actually add a background color. And I want something fun, Burley wood. Is that wood that works out? Chartreuse. These are all colors that my wife would know very well, and I look at this. Oh my god, there is a great board game all about colors, that before I present again, I will tell you the name. But let's pick I want something a little dark and my text to be a little light. So, deep pink, and we will make our color, make sure it's contrast well, make it white, and we'll see how shocking this is. There we go. All right. And now let me get specific on that joke div. I want to make that text a little bit bigger. We'll just do pound joke. Now, you have I have a lot of respect for CSS, and as like part of my job, I try to keep up on everything web platform related. But CSS has just like moved at light speed. And so I know there's like a lot of different units now, like 10 different units of size in regards to styling stuff. I do not know them, but I'm going to try an EM, which I believe like 3 AM, 3 EM will be 300% size. So 3 times as big as normal. There we go. Now that's big, but considering the fact that like this is the only thing that I have on my page, I think it's okay that it makes up that it takes up a lot of the space. And then let's do something with that button, and I want to center it and make it a little bit bigger. Let's just make it bigger first. So joke button, uh, height of 150 px. Yes, I'm kind of guessing there. That's horrendous. We'll make that 120, and let's also make it bigger. 100 px. Yeah, that's still kind of gross. But we'll make this even bigger, 120. And then the font size internal 2 EM, and that should make it a little bigger. Great, that's actually nice. Let's make this wider. Again, if I go too fast in my alt tabbing and all that, let me know. Interesting. As I make the button bigger, it's still 2 lines. If I made this 250, is that big enough to make it? That's excellent. Now I'm going to do the easiest thing in web development. In fact, this should be the Google hiring interview. I'm going to center the button. You may get your popcorn out. This is going to be fun. In fact, I'm going to do what I normally do. First, switch to Google on this browser and center a button, CSS, 2 billion results. How to center? Yeah, we'll do this one. Why not? Random website. Text align to center, and there's no way it's that easy on a button. As those ads load, we won't. Text align center. If this works on my first try, when I spell center correctly, I will be the happiest person ever. That's what I thought. All right. They probably have it in a container. Yeah. You know what? I am okay putting that button in a container. I will make a joke button container. I know there are much better ways to do this, like with CSS Grid, and I know CSS Grid a tiny bit, but because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, we'll use a div. Just trust me when I say don't use a div. Don't do what I'm doing. Container, div, and this will be centered. Here we go. This is going to be awesome. Yes. All right. Last thing I'm going to do is close that window, which is still loading ads. I'm going to put some vertical space. I would love to align it to the bottom, but I'm not going to push my luck. So we will put the margin on the wrapper, margin top 10 px. px. I wonder if I did position absolute and did like, y minus 10. Yeah, you know what? I'm just not going to. I'm going to leave it at that. All right. So web app is done. Let me make sure I didn't break anything, and I did not. Um, if the button was aligned towards the bottom, you wouldn't have it bouncing around. I agree that that'd be a great thing to do. Uh, don't think I want to do that. Let's see. You know what? Let's see. Margin 0 auto would work. Oh, on the button, I assume you mean I've already centered it, so I'm going to just move on from there. But we have a web app, very lame, very simple web app, but it works. So I do want to think a little bit about how it's going to look on a mobile browser. And one easy kind of way of doing that is, and this works in any Chromium browser, but Firefox and Safari has it as well, is the mobile emulation. You will see it over here under toggle device emulation. And we will click that. And let me make this a little bit smaller. And you could see it has a responsive layout at first, but we could let's pick, I don't know. By the way, my mother-in-law has a foldable phone, and I know I kind of joked at the idea, but when I saw hers, it's actually kind of cool. I don't want to buy one. I'm happy she bought one so I could look at hers. But all right, let's pick a iPhone 12 Pro, and that is tiny. Now, what I remember is that there is a viewport that I've been using for probably 10 years. That's just not in my default HTML template. That should make this a bit more mobile friendly. By the way, I got this from MDN Web Docs, best website in the world for learning about the web platform. And it actually explains every single one of those. So I know no one in this audience, none of y'all ever just copy paste from copy code from websites. You look at it, you read about it, you research it, you understand every part of the code that you're copying, and you do that. You read it, you explore, then you copy and paste. So I know that you do that. I do that too. I feel fine just coming in here, and I'll just drop that in like so, save it, and come back to my website, and that's not bad. I mean, my text could possibly be a little bit smaller. Uh, and again, I would like to align that button at the bottom, but I'm not going to for right now. I will stop clicking. I promise. I just like these jokes. All right. So, um, obviously, I would spend more than 15 minutes on my design, more than what I think 3 minutes or so talking about the mobile layout. Let's just pretend that I spent a good amount of time thinking about how to make this look better on the mobile platform. And we are already approaching like the end of the hour just building the app, but that's all right. We can continue this next time. So let's go back to the Wikipedia definition and look at the three things they mentioned. They mentioned HTTPS. Like I said, that's not a problem. Obviously, I'm on localhost now, but that checkbox is done. We're not going to do the service worker now, but we are going to build a web app manifest because that's actually pretty darn simple. So let's look at this, and I'm skimming the file and go to the proper article, and you're just linking me right back to where I was. So web app manifest example. Let's look it up. And again, this browser is defaulting to Bing, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't want AI answers. Let's go back to MDN, which is always good, and look at their example manifest. So first thing I want to point out, this will be a JSON file. It will be called manifest.json, and we're going to link to it. You can see an example right there. Let me make this bigger for y'all. There we go. So it's essentially going to be two parts. It is going to be creating the JSON file that helps define what our site is as a web application. And then it's going to be a HTML tag that's going to link to that manifest file. It's important that you remember that because if you're working on a website that's multiple pages, you'd want to make sure every page in your website has that same thing. Most of us use some type of application framework, whatever, to handle our site layout, so we don't have to worry about it. I'm old enough to remember using tools like Dreamweaver and uh, what was before Cold Fusion Builder, HomeSite. Using HomeSite and doing multi-file search and replace to update site layout. But this is a big, deep file that I'm just going to copy as is because I do that and make manifest.json, paste it in because I kind of remember actually most of these. So this again is going to define what makes our web page installable or how it should be installed. And by the way, I talked about, I may not have made this very clear. There are things that you could do where the browser itself tells you, hey, you can install me. And so that's great for casual users. Basically, no one in this audience right now, we're all developers. As developers, we know that for a while, like there's been add to home screen, right? I'd be willing to bet most of the general public has never used add to home screen. They never think necessarily that that's even an option per se. So the fact that a your browser can kind of prompt the person using the site, that's a good thing because it lets them know that that's even an option. So I was kind of curious if Visual Studio Code had built-in intelligence for it. So if we don't know what any of this is, we would go back and look at the documentation. And again, MDN will explain all of these. And I wish it had one on the page itself, but it doesn't. But we can go into these and look at each one in detail. So, for example, name, um, right there, what's used for the label as an icon. On your desktop, it'll be the name that you see as an application. But we are going to change our name to, what did I call it? Dad Joke, and call the page Dad Joke App. Why not? Short name, if I remember right, but I don't have to remember because we can look it up. Is yeah. So if it's on your mobile display and there's not enough space to show the full name, then the short name will be used instead. And actually, I like this example. Basically, changing application to app. You could like I know I've seen apps on my phone when the titles are there and they're cropped off. This gives you a bit more control over how to render that in that case. Dad joke app is probably going to fit, but for the heck of it, I will use dad joke as a bit shorter. Start URL, I believe, is not even required. The preferred URL that should be loaded when the user launches the web app. Yeah, so that makes sense. So if you're on a non-single page application, so your site, raymondcamden.com, and you're on raymondcamden.com/speaking. That's my speaking URL. My whole site is using one app manifest setting. I would probably want you always to start at slash. So in our case, we only have one file, so we could probably just leave this as slash. I do believe it needs to be a full URL, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do actually, just to kind of short circuit some of this, not go through all this, I'm going to erase all this and just start simply and go into my index.html file and add that meta link, which again, I am just going to steal right from MDN right there. link rel equals manifest and point to manifest.json, save it. And in theory, I should see nothing different when I reload. Let me go and turn off responsive. Right there, get back to normal, reload. Yes, everything's the same. However, in our DevTools, if we go to the application tab, it will recognize that there is a manifest.json. It will even tell you things like richer PWA install UI won't be available on desktop. It's telling you essentially, I won't auto prompt the user to install you because you don't have the bare minimum in order to do that. It doesn't mean this is wrong. Like if I were to go to add to desktop now, the fact that I defined a name, the fact that I defined a shorter name, all that will still get used. It's just telling me that I've not done enough to get that installation. That's what I really, really want. But scroll past the errors and the instability and all that, we could see that it is picking things up, which is good. So I know that I have typed them correctly. I haven't done anything weird like that. But let's actually start looking now at some of these things. So let's start with instability, installability. Manifest display property must be one of standalone, full screen, or minimal UI. So what is the display property? So this is essentially going to say when I open up the browser window for you, uh, how should it work, right? So is it going to be full screen? Is it going to be less browser Chrome, like minimal UI, essentially? And you would pick this such that your website looks less like a web page and more like an application. So I'm going to pick minimal UI. Kind of make it kind of simple. So that was display. I'll go in here, add display. Now again, I am I forgot how to spell minimal because you all are all watching UI. So I'm not going to see any change in my web page, but my dev tools should at least be like, hey, you did one more thing to keep you happy. And it did right there. So now I'm down to 2 issues. Manifest does not contain a suitable icon in 144px, and this sizes attribute must be set, and the purpose, etc. That is a lot. So I'm going to show you a website that I used recently for another PWA that I built, and that was Flat Icon. I used this for Idlefleet, my little clicker game. But if we go into in fact, this is the icon I used. If we search for laugh, 10,000. We could pick one of these. I'm going to go with this one. And we'll just grab it. We will download PNG. Free download, attribution required. I don't mind doing that. How to attribute, copy link. And for right now, I'm just going to put in a comment. I'll find a nicer way of doing that later. But I have my icon. So once you have the icon, and this is kind of the scary part, there's like 12 different sizes for the icon that you need. And in fact, let me go back here and scroll down. Yeah, it has nothing for icon. Read the app engine. So if I load up my website, which is definitely not a PWA, but I definitely have an app manifest in here. You could see I should have a bunch of icons. Yeah, well, I have a bunch. I have 2. Yeah. So the last time that I needed to take like a source icon and generate all of the, I love that current joke on screen now. The last time I needed to do this, I Googled for um, web app manifest icon maker or something like that. But you know what? Since the browser is actually telling me, I know I just saw it, read the app image generator. And pwabuilder.com, I know that's a Microsoft thing. And then, yeah. So let me put this over here. I'm going to choose file. And I don't want y'all browsing my downloads and all that. We'll get the image. I did choose it. There we go. All right. It just took a little while to render. So I will leave padding alone, background transparent. Select the platform, Windows, Android, iOS. Sure. I don't care. No file available. Oh, you know what? Because I hit where why are you so broken? I'm so happy I picked this. You should where's the button? Let me reload this. There you go. Choose file. Pick it again. All right. And Ray, don't click anything because last time you messed it up. There we go. All right. Laughing.png. Generate. And it did something. All right. It downloaded. So let me unzip this and then I'll bring this over to where y'all could see. Sure. Extract. 116 images. Oh my God. That's crazy. Let's look at the JSON file it made. Yeah, so as far as I know, this format here, icons with the sizes and the sources and all that, this is what you would use in your app manifest. So we could copy and paste it. Windows, I like you. I don't know if I want 100 different icons on that, but I'm also kind of lazy. So you know what? Let's just copy the whole darn thing. Copy that, go back to mine, go into the manifest JSON, and let's see what happens. I dropped it in. Now these are all using kind of a root file, root folder. So we have Windows 11 as a root. If I scroll down, iOS. I would like to have this under an assets folder. I'm going to keep it simple for now and just put it in my root. And later on, I'll clean it up, especially before next week when we continue on this. But what you can't see is I am going into my folder. You're going to see it pop over here in a second. I'm going to find my code break folder, my folder I'm working in, PWA1. And we're going to copy all of these huge number of icons. And you see these showed up right here. So etc. By the way, zone identifier. If you work in Windows subsystem for Linux, like I do, which I like, when you copy files from the Windows native file system into here, it tends to create these files called zone identifiers. So this is so annoying that I actually made an alias. And I'm going into the folder now in a different window, PWA1 called kill zone, and they will all magically disappear. All right. So yeah, we have a crap ton of these icons, way more than we probably need. But in theory, if we go back and reload, it should be happier. And yep, it sees all of those images. That's way too many. Yeah, you don't need all of these at all. But in theory, we got rid of the installability. I'll say that correctly one time. We got rid of that particular issue. And it's talking about a richer PWA install. That is something I'm kind of familiar with. My understanding is that Google is testing a even more friendly install prompt, allowing you to do a little bit more. So you have kind of like like if your app meets the base requirements. The browser will say, "Hey, buddy, do you want to install me?" And it'll have like the app name, and like that's about it. Google has been, I think it's just Google, but Edge obviously is going along with this, has been testing what they call a richer UI, which gives more information. So a user is not just saying yes or no. They can look and say, oh, yeah, this actually makes sense for me. I'll say yes. A great example of that is with notifications. Uh, I mean, we all love when we go to a website for the first time and it's like, I want to send you notifications, and that's all it tells you. And I say no every single time. If it were instead to say, I'm going to send you notifications, but at most one a month and only for X, only for some particular thing. If it provided a lot more context, I'd be a lot more inclined to actually do it. But so that's kind of what we're looking at with the rich install UI. I'm going to ignore this because we don't need this. We have essentially we've handled what is required two of the three things. We would be on a secure web server, and we have the app manifest file, and there is more. Like I took stuff out. Let me go back to the MDN page. Um, there's more things like background color. By the way, so background color, when you click the icon on your desktop or um, on your mobile device, this is like an initial color. Like before it even tries to load your crap, you could say use the color red. And if your CSS and stuff has the same color, when your application loads, it's gonna be kind of more of a seamless type transition. So it's kind of a way of like starting up in your preferred color scheme, and description, etc. But yeah, we don't need any of that. So what we did, we spent about maybe 25 minutes actually building the application. Wasn't thinking PWA in any way whatsoever. I just built, what I needed. I then did the bare minimum to make it look decent on mobile. And like I said, I really want to push that button to the bottom so it doesn't move when when we click new jokes like this. Um, but we did enough. It's readable, and you could definitely have a nice big enough button there to hit with your fat fingers. And we then built the app manifest file, which if a user was to manually install this to their home screen, it would actually use what we defined. So it would say dad joke app or dad joke. And based on the platform, it would use the appropriate icon. So we are actually two-thirds of the way there, spent the whole hour. Uh, but next week, we get to build the service worker, which is not quite as easy as everything I showed today, but uh, will be okay, I think. So that is it. This code will be up in GitHub. Let me put me back on screen and move my screen over here so I'm not looking to the side. I hope that you enjoyed this. Uh, we are going to continue next week. No, in 2 weeks. We'll start working on this more. And another thing I'm going to try to get working before then is displaying my mobile phone on my desktop. I used to do a lot of mobile app development back when I was doing PhoneGap and Cordova. So I know that's absolutely possible, but I'm going to refresh that ahead of time so I can just show it. And we will deploy this website, show it on my mobile phone, and show that prompt. We'll actually get it on Edge, so y'all will see it on my desktop as well. Um, but that will be next time. So, thank you very much. I love all y'all. Y'all had great comments today. The guy who won, Dan or somebody up there, uh, you remember I told you to reach out to me, so please do so. and have a good rest of the day. Pretty sure there won't be another eclipse between now and next time unless something has gone really, really wrong. But stay safe, be good, and goodbye, y'all.